Hi, this is Daryl Webster. I had the opportunity to go to Microsoft Ignite this year. I wanted a way to be able to capture my experiences while I was at Ignite, be able to share them with the people that follow me, and also get them interacting a little with the content that I began to create. The Office 365 network on Yammer put out a challenge to be able to put together a trip report using the Microsoft product Office Sway. I already had a few ideas of how I was going to approach sharing my experience. I was going to be using OneNote to try and capture my notes, and also perhaps to get people to add to these notes. I knew that I was going to be taking a lot of photos, that I was going to be tweeting things. I had been beginning to use the Vine service so that I could capture short videos and loops to be able to share the experience with a bit more depth than just photos. I also wanted to do my part in sharing some of the excitement coming up to the event. So I was trying to capture some of the tweets and bits of social media and things from Channel 9 to let us know what's going to happen at the event and what to expect. So taking some inspiration from this trip report challenge, I thought, what better way than to use Office Sway to share my experience? But rather than it being an entry for the competition, I wanted to take it a lot deeper than just a few pieces of information to be able to share with people in a Sway. I wanted to try and make it an interactive experience, and in some way to try and use Sway in a real-time way to share what I was doing at Ignite. So I began to think this through. I started out creating one big Sway, and as I was adding content, even just leading up to Ignite, the more multimedia content, the more live content that I started to add, videos and tweets and all sorts of things that were embedded in my Sway, the larger the Sway became. It became difficult to work with when I was trying to create the content. So I saw that if I was going to use this as a tool to try and share my experiences live, I was going to need to split up the Sways into a Sway per day, which is where I began to create this dashboard. So the idea with this dashboard was that I prepared some of my Sways before the event. I knew the sessions that I was going to attend, and I wanted to be able to lay them out in such a way that when I participated in an event or an activity, attended a session, took some notes, that I could present it at the beginning of my Sway. I also embedded the Sway for each day within the page itself, so when someone visited my blog, they were going to see the Sway that I was currently working on. So you see here I've got Friday the 8th of May still displayed. I have the tweets from the event that I put out there during Ignite. And when I was about to attend a session or about to do something like attend the Office 365 network breakfast, I would tweet something out to say, this is what I'm currently doing, and I would include a link back to this blog post. And if it was some session notes, then I would include a link to those notes as well within OneNote. So when someone visited my blog, then they would see the page as it loaded, and they would get the very latest content as it loaded in the blog post. So that would come up here, and they'd go along to the first slide. There'd be a slight explanation perhaps of what was going on, and then they'd see the sessions that I had attended or are currently attending. And I would be adding photos to these Sways in addition to creating the notes for my session. And so I had this link here to the session notes, and the idea with that was that someone would be able to click in, and I had used a little hack, you might say, to try and expose the session notes for just one session. Rather than showing a whole notebook, I was able to show just these notes. Now I'll talk a little bit more about that later. The great thing about embedding the Sway in the blog post here is that I can click a button to make it full screen. So it's not just the experience of just having to see it within the table that I embedded it in, but I could expand it and get it to be more of a full screen experience. So each day that I attended Ignite, I took the embed code from the sway and put it in my blog post so that the most current sway was displayed within this table. I displayed some links below that to show the other days that I was going to attend, or the days I had attended, so that people could go back and see the sways that I'd already begun to fill out. I also provided this link for people to be able to see the whole Ignite notebook that I created, which contains all the notes for the sessions that I attended, so that you could go through and see the different sessions without necessarily just focusing on one session. So this was one way to present the lot in one page. So let's take a look at how one of these sways was laid out. While sway is currently in preview, at the moment I log in using my Microsoft account. And because I'm using Windows 8.1, I am logged into sway automatically using that. So as I said, I created my sways before the event, laying out the sessions that I knew I was going to attend. I had been invited to participate in a collaborative sway too, which it worked out okay, but I wanted to be able to put together some of my content here. So as you see, this layout of the sways is showing you the last sway that was altered, the last modified sway. So if we look at the countdown sway to begin with, you'll get a picture of why I began to break it up into a sway per day rather than one large sway. Because at the beginning, there was only a little content. If we just go right to the end here, I was just trying to share some of the things as they were being announced. Just things like watching it live and some of the things that I saw from contacts that I had. Naomi Money Penny session, and we've got there a little about countdown to Ignite with Channel 9. I began to embed some videos as well, some of the instructional things that I saw as speakers and attendees alike came in and started to use the My Ignite site, how the information was beginning to be displayed. Suddenly we had session codes, and then we had the room numbers being added. So I wanted to be able to get that across to people so that they could have a better experience. And I was using Sway to do that within my blog post. We had the all-important Channel 9 episode about the bag. Interesting to see that, once again, everyone's really excited about what's the bag going to be like and what can it do and what can it contain. So I wanted to share that too, counting down to Ignite. So you get the idea. There was a lot that I wanted to share that was coming up to the Ignite event. We're trying to muster up the people on the Office 365 network to come and attend a breakfast, so that was important to share too. And I began to build this out with all this dynamic content. The more I added, the more I saw that if I had one large sway, it was going to be like one large single-page website that was going to be a bit unwieldy to drive and to look at, and it might take some time to load. Not only that, but it was beginning to be difficult to work with, because as I began to add more and more dynamic content, the response time was going to be difficult for adding more content, and that became quite difficult. So I wanted to make use of a number of these different cards for Sway. See, unlike PowerPoint where you have slides, Sway uses cards, and they have different abilities. As you can see, I've got a number of them down the side. It's your standard text head and heading cards, different ways that you can treat pictures and videos, bringing in multimedia, or rather social media. The one that I've used quite a lot now is the Embed Card, which allows me to bring in content from other different sites that is quite dynamic and displays things like videos or vines or the like. We've also got this group of cards that lets me display photos in different ways. I can group them, put them into a stack, so it's a little like having a pile of photos and just flicking through and going from front to back, or a comparison of being able to put two photos together, and you can have a slider that shows the difference between the two. Slide shows in grids, which we'll see as we work through this. But the idea with the cards is that I saw by being able to share my current experience with Sway, I could drag things into a different order. And as it is with Sway, that's updating dynamically. So if I wanted to attend the Office 365 mixer and I wanted to drag that into a different order, then I could just drag this whole section down, or up as the case may be, and it would be in that position on the Sway. And so this is how I laid out my Sway for each day, and had the sessions that I was going to attend, and always dragged the session that I was currently attending to the front of the Sway. So we'll see that when we have a look at some of the sessions for the day. You notice that it's much easier to do that as a section, which is a header, and it just collapsing that section and dragging it around, rather than having to drag the individual content that has to do with that particular activity or experience. So keeping that all together in a section is a good thing to do to make the content easy to move around the Sway. So how did Sway play out during the Ignite itself? So attending sessions on day 1 through to 5. We'll go through to have a look at the other Sways that I'd created. We'll look at day 1. So day 1 had a lot of the keynotes, and attending those, I was a speaker, so I didn't have the privilege of being able to go into the main area where the keynote was being delivered, but I could go into the overflow and experience it from there. So my first Sway is Monday the 4th of May. And what I have done already is I've put the content back into the order that I attended it. My intention was during Ignite that I would put my most current session that I was attending at the beginning, as I said earlier. And at the conclusion of Ignite, then I would put things back into the order chronologically, so people could go through and experience the day or the content that I experienced it in that order. So as I was experiencing the keynote, I had grabbed a few pictures, and actually I need to show you how that worked, because a little magic there with OneDrive. What I was doing was taking pictures using my phone, and using Windows Phone I connected it to OneDrive, and that was synchronizing my camera roll. I have since dragged over these pictures into a special folder for the Ignite pictures rather than leaving in my camera roll, but just to give you an experience of what I needed to do. The pictures as I take them are still online. They're not downloaded and able to be used in Sway. So if I just find one of the pictures there from the keynote, this one I'll do, and I knew there were a few ways of getting content into, or these pictures into the Sway. So I could have gone to import and found my OneDrive storage source and then tried to find the photo there, but it was easier for me to do this using my camera roll on my computer. So essentially what I was doing was making the photo available offline, and this would sync it to my machine, and then I could take that photo and drag it into position, and it would become part of the Sway as it saved and was synchronized. I didn't spend a lot of time working with other features of Sway like focus points during the session, because I wanted to be able to capture notes as well, not just taking pictures and dropping them into my Sway. So this photo, because it's at the beginning of my Sway, and it's synchronized to the main content and it's live, the next time someone visited that page, either via my blog dashboard or if they were looking at it via Sway, and they refresh it, then they'll see that picture and it will be in the order that it appeared and the order that I experienced it. Now we'll just remove that from the sway because it's not exactly where it appeared in my experience. So one thing I did was I did take pictures that I wanted to add later on, but part of setting up my sways beforehand, before the event, I wanted to create a My Ignite journal that was based in OneNote and shared via OneNote online. And so for each session, I had one big notebook, but I was able to get into that notebook and just share the section for that session that I was attending. So what you see here is the inside view of a OneNote notebook, just within SharePoint Online. And here's my section on the keynotes. This is a section file. And the way that I shared it was I could just isolate just that section file, go into share, and I was using a guest link with view only. I did go one step further and take this great big ugly looking horrible long link and use bit.ly as a link shortener, so that if someone wanted to copy that link then they could do so, and it wasn't necessarily a long ugly link that they could experience. So that link would then take them through to the session notes that were isolated, just seeing one section. So if we copy that over here, when they launched it from the sway as they were viewing it, when they were experiencing it, then they could come in and they could see my notes as I was creating them. So this is where I begin to start talking about the notes and how I created them within OneNote. As an experience with OneNote, I've used it beforehand at conferences to share my notes and also to get people to contribute to the notes. So what I wanted to do with this was, by using this alongside Sway, have somewhere that people could go and see some of the key points that I took out from the session as I attended it. I used different styles of headings so I could easily see which keynotes or which parts of the keynote I was referring to. So as I was filling out and taking the notes of the session, anything that was recent was near the top. And this is one of the things about OneNote Online that is an advantage over Sway at the moment. As I'm adding content to OneNote Online, it synchronizes and it appears fresh within the page itself. There's no need to refresh the page, it just happens. That's part of the co-authoring power of OneNote. Sway isn't quite there yet with that particular ability, but I'm hoping that we get to that point. So as you can see, someone could just come through and have a look at these notes. And I was dragging, as you can see, dragging these pictures into the session notes as well, just to give it a bit more of an appeal so that people could see what I was covering at the time. And being a guest link, they wouldn't have the option to edit the notebook. You're seeing the view of my view of it because I'm logged in with my account. So this method of taking notes and making them live in combination with Sway began to develop, I guess, into something that I called Live Notes, and I was using their hashtag Live Notes as I began to take these notes within each session that I attended. It got quite popular too. I got a number of retweets and people following along with me, and some people who were not at Ignite were able to participate and see these notes begin to be added to live as I was attending the session. So one of the things that I've been able to do following the Ignite, that after each day, it took about 24 hours, but the sessions that were recorded were available and made available on Channel 9. Now I had been speaking with David Alexander from the Sway team about the different content that you could embed, and Channel 9 was missing on the list of approved sites that you could grab and embed content from. So David kindly hurried that process along, got in touch with the development team, and from about day 4 we were able to embed the videos from Channel 9 into our sways. So as you can see here, I've used an embed card, and I'd grabbed the embed code for the session, the recording. And this was a good way to be able to pull together not just my experience, but also the the official produced content that was really nice for people to consume, and so they could get the full experience themselves. Hopefully that the notes and the photos and the things that I gathered around that particular session or experience helped to give it another dimension. So I did try to make use of a number of different ways of presenting photos and content. So I have used a slideshow here. I did leave a grid in there that I'm actually not using anymore. Chose to use the slideshow instead. But if we go through and have a look at what that looks like, we've got our keynote, and there's a header card there with the heading over the top of it, and a few photos there. So there's the Channel 9 video that I can play, and that will give you that full experience. Actually, one of my favorites there is the sketch notes that were made in OneNote of some of the sessions, and they're quite fun to look at and also to see as they're being created. So here's that slideshow, and the format that I chose to use was the one with the thumbnails at the bottom, so that people can just jump straight to the photo that they might be interested in. So moving a bit further along, here's a few vines that I had created just to give yet another person on the spot experience of what it was like, and that was me within the overflow room, just showing you how many people are in there currently while we were waiting to attend. Or perhaps the vine to show you the experience of going between the grand concourse and the number of people, the volumes of people that attended Ignite. That was really something to experience. 20,000 people in between sessions, just trying to find their rooms and trying to find their way. By the end of the week, we were all familiar with the layout of Ignite and where everything was being run. So it was good. Initially, it was overwhelming for a guy like me from a small town, but it was a great venue, and I'm glad to see that it's going to be used again next year. So as I did that for each session and trying to show you the other content that I captured to try and give the experience a fuller dimension, I also want to show you that not only were the videos available the next day, but also following the session after it had been run, then we also managed to get the access to the PowerPoints for the session too. So if I come on down to one of my favorite sessions of the conference, how to decide when to use SharePoint and Yammer and Office 365 groups and Outlook and Skype and ... how to use them all, how to make a choice. So I have grabbed the embed code and put it in this second card here for the video, but I also downloaded the slides, put them into my OneDrive, and shared the embed code for the slide deck as well. So you get a good full experience. If we go along to see what that was like, let's get along here. Sessions I attended. The session experience, I click through and I can see the notes, and here I've got the PowerPoint and also the where the video would appear. And if I had refreshed that, then you will see the video. So there's the session header card, the description of the session and session notes if you want to click through and see that in OneNote Online. And here's the PowerPoint deck that you can flick through and see the different slides alongside or near the video itself, which you can play through and hear the presenters as they speak. So I was trying to bring together all that content and put it together in the session, in that section together. And then it was nice and easy for me to drag that around and put that into the right order within my sway. So it has been quite a job pulling the videos and the PowerPoints together with each of the sessions I attended following Ignite. It's been a few days, and of course I had a bit of travel to get back to New Zealand, but just being able to finish it off, round it off, and have all the sways together so that people can go through and experience that. So I have been also adjusting my blog posts, trying to make it now so that it's not just links down the bottom that people go to, but I'll be creating something of a a write-up at the end to say what it was like, and some thumbnails to open up each of the sways in a full screen view. I was also fortunate enough to spend a couple of hours with David on Thursday, David Alexander from the Sway team, just talking through with him about how I use Sway and some of the things that are coming up in Sway as well. So this interview will also be part of the page once I've updated it. Rounding off my use of Sway, OneNote and OneDrive to share my Ignite experience. So maybe this has given you a few ideas about how you might use Sway to cover an event, to create your own trip report, or curate some of the content from activities that you might be involved in. There are a lot more things coming to Sway that are going to make it even easier to use. We've got the integration with Office 365 logins soon that will help you to share content from within your Office 365 sites, and other exciting layouts and behaviours that will be added to Sway too. So thank you Microsoft for a great experience at Ignite. Thank you for the wonderful people that made it possible. You know who you are. Thank you for the interview, David, of spending some time with me and showing me more about Sway. And I look forward to your feedback and being in conversation with you on the Office 365 network.